Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.
Good evening. Welcome back to Leadership Live. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and looking forward to another great show this evening. As you know, small business is my favorite topic. Each week we have some tremendous guests and really just tackle another area of importance for entrepreneurs to know about. Definitely appreciate everybody tuning in, either live or, through the podcast, and hopefully we create some valuable learning experience and opportunity for you. Many of our sessions are focused on a specific topic or area, but tonight we're going to be talking about posturing for prosperity in a complex world. As everybody knows, the world is pretty complex and business is complex. So of course, it's important to focus on specific things with a narrow focus to make sure that they're done as well as possible. But also, as a business owner, it's your responsibility to really orchestrate everything together so your business is running optimally so you can maximize profits and grow. So that's what we're going to be talking to tonight. My guest, Shaun Deverson, that's his area of expertise, and really looking forward to having a great conversation with him this evening. Hey, Shaun, welcome.
Hi, Andrew. Great to be here.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for joining me tonight, or I guess today for you, since you're coming in from Australia. And I won't hold that against you, though. But we're gonna have some fun this evening. We got a great audience. Appreciate any comments, questions as we go along, because we're really doing this for you. So Shaun, you've done a lot of great stuff, and you can tell us more about it than me. So I'm going to let you sort of just talk a little bit about your journey. Where you came from and some of your key milestones and how you got to what you're doing now.
Thanks, Andrew. My journey to today certainly wasn't planned. It's fair to say when I left high school, I had little to no idea what I wanted to do in life. So coming from a military family, I joined the military for a bit of adventure and seeing the world. And but from there, it was a process of certainly being enlightened to with that travel and being exposed to, a more global, environment. I was in the Navy. I traveled a fair bit around Asia and New Zealand and this, the Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean, and seeing different cultures, different systems. Just exposed a couple of things to me at a relatively young age that set some seeds. And from the military, I went to university and studied environmental engineering. About that time, this issue of climate change was emerging in the late 90s, early 2000s, and wanted to get in front of it and learn more about it and what it all meant. And from there, getting more into business, I've managed a small business, and being part of also large corporations, I've seen a lot of different things that work well, but equally that don't work. About 6 years ago, I couldn't say we created a small business called Lighthouse Futures, which was aiming to address that issue of what doesn't work. And what we saw is this emerging complexity with all these emerging issues that are coming into our world right now. And so we thought that we could do something about it. We could offer some insights, and that's where we are today. Our specialty is looking at how we can change businesses, transition businesses to be better equipped, to lead better, and put themselves into a situation where they actually can leverage complexity, leverage this uncertainty. Yes, it's risky, it's volatile, but within there's opportunity, and that's what we're here to support businesses with.
All right, excellent. So, it's interesting. We've got some similarities in our background, given that I served in the Navy as well, and have an engineering degree. So we look at the world a little bit similarly. And I think that our training really helps us to be able to see and understand complexity, because
absolutely,
you have to be quantitative and analytical to really be able to understand how complex systems work.
I leverage a lot of things from my time in the Navy, actually, Andrew, good and bad. You're probably well aware of that. The good part was, definitely dealing in today's situation of complexity is that sort of that notion of preparedness and training. There's an old saying that I usually reference with clients that we often try to rise to our expectations, but we often fall to our level of training or skills. So I think that's one thing that the military do very well, is training and preparing people for complexity. The bad part, which we also leverage, is that you get into that sort of system that doesn't often promote creativity and probably the right leadership in the right areas. But certainly on the notions of complexity, the military do provide a good model in how to prepare for complexity in terms of preparedness, training, and dealing with uncertainty. I definitely leveraged both good and bad parts about my time in the Navy.
Same here. Definitely, it's you learn a lot, learn how to deal with people and leadership.
Yes.
And I use that all the time with entrepreneurs and business owners, and that's part of the reason for the show, because your business can only go as far as you're prepared to lead it. So you have to continually develop your leadership skills. And a big piece of it is knowledge too, because you got to lead people to do the right things. But if you don't know what the right things are, how are you going to do that effectively? So so definitely leadership is key. So we're going to dig into some of this stuff, but before we do that, I've got a quick commercial or highlights of our most recent project that we put together for entrepreneurs and business owners, and a great opportunity for them. We put together the Small Business Pro Network. And I'll play a quick video, and we'll get back to talking small business.
What's the ultimate business ecosystem for helping entrepreneurs to accelerate and grow their businesses? Of course, it's the Small Business Pro Network.
I got to say, I'm glad I trusted you with your plan, because I like the plan. But we are, there's no guarantees, and it is a journey, but we're getting there, and we're making real solid progress.
Andrew helped me with the growth plan for my business, and also in the financial side. So we're able to get loans.
I thought it was great, good practical information that is good for both entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs. Andrew breaks it down in a very understandable way.
You need someone that's going to tell you how to get things done, how to move your business forward, how you can run your business like a pro.
I've known Andrew for 10 years, but when we started working together, I got to see the master's mind. And he's been helping me with my financials, making sure everything's together, what's working versus what's not working in my business, so that I'm working on my business and not in my business, period.
Join the Small Business Pro Network to learn from the experts, collaborate with like-minded entrepreneurs, and access valuable resources for growth. Hello, I'm Andrew Frazier. My mission is to help 1 million business owners by 2028 to sell more, make more, and get financing. I've worked with more than 1,000 business owners one-on-one, helping them to grow revenue, increase profit, and obtain financing. I created the Small Business Pro Network to help you achieve your goals faster and easier. Join before Labor Day to become a charter member for free. Visit www.sbpronetwork.com. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
Okay, welcome back. I'm here with Shaun Deverson. We're talking small business, and we're really just talking about how do you position yourself to be more successful in a complex world. It's a global business environment. There's a lot of different dynamics, a lot of different trends, a lot of different competition, a lot of different technology that that you're dealing with, and it's important for you to understand. But no one can know everything, so definitely having a better understanding of sort of how to maneuver in this, but also Shaun has an expertise in figuring out what doesn't work. Sometimes it's more important to know what. It's easier and better to know what doesn't work than what is going to work. So, Shaun, talk a little bit about how you have developed your expertise in figuring out what doesn't work, and what's one of the number one things that you find in many situations that really tends to not really work well.
Yeah, it's a great question, Andrew. So to get to my level of insight expertise, it's been a journey of both organic learning and research. So to understand the level of complexity where we are today is to understand that a lot of what we've done before in business, but also the broader political, educational system and societal and economic, is a lot of understanding that a lot of bad systems, bad structures have got to us where we are today. This notion of complexity isn't really a new thing. It's just emerged as latent consequences out of those sort of bad structures of before, and they're now coming to be realized today. Throw in what you mentioned before about the hyperconnectivity, technology, climate change, which are, I guess, these latent consequences now emerging. We have to acknowledge that we have to do a lot of things differently. And if we keep on rolling out the same old BAU, we're just going to keep on rolling out and realizing the same old consequences. So through that, what we started to look at and dive into is particularly within businesses, is this notion of leadership, decision making, and realizing that the best way to move forward is a bit like what you just sort of said then, was realizing that you don't know everything. And it's that level of humility that you need to start to embrace in your leadership. Now, that can take a bit of courage, and it can take a bit of going against your own belief systems and bias. But what we realize and starting to see is this notion of, if you start to become more open-minded and releasing your leadership to others, that sort of distributed decision-making and leadership, you start to actually realize better outcomes in this world of complexity that we are in today. So, we often use this term called making your business a complex adaptive system. So before, we had this very hierarchical top-down system. That won't work in today's level of complexity. It can be used from an administrative sense, and it's not to say we totally disrespect it or disregard it. It just means that you need to bolt on this other level of, I guess, behavior and decision-making and authority in other ways to beat this notion of complexity. This is law called Ashby's law of requisite variety that we often use too. It sort of says to match your complexity in the environment, you also equally have to have a level of complexity in your organization as well. And that doesn't mean complex rules or complex systems to create complex play. It's actually the paradox. It's actually the opposite. So creating simple rules, and this is that notion of systems leadership. And systems leadership pretty much, if anything else, advocates for simple rules. That is transparent, because if anything else, people want to be able to predict what organization they're walking into. So, and that engenders innovation, psychological safety, as we've heard a lot of that these days. And a lot of discussions can be had in that sort of environment. So to answer your question, in coming around back to your question, it's that organic insights, but also realizing from our work, how you need to flip your thinking and how you used to lead before and what you need to lead into the future.
All right. So interesting. So you got to match the complexity, but also sort of simplify the complexity.
Yeah, it's a paradox. It sounds odd, but what you actually end up doing is a general rule that sort of says that simple rules creates complex behavior. So, and equally complex systems create simple behavior. So it's a bit better where the Navy and our military gets it right and wrong in certain things, I think. So it's about, so if people know what their left and right of arcs are, so to speak, then that's the simple rule, or they know how to behave and know what they can offer. If they don't know that, if it's complex, if it's ambiguous, well, people will go into simple behaviors and probably get into what we call deviant behavior. They actually start to create their own rules or create their own little ways of working. And so it is a paradox, but by simple, transparent rules, it creates the complex behavior. And complex doesn't mean negative or it's uncontrolled. It means it engenders a level of talking, innovation. And I mentioned that term before, complex adaptive systems. One of the things that comes out of that is this level of notion of emergence. Okay. And emergence is something that is something that arises constantly nowadays. As a small business 20, 30 years ago, you could probably predict and risk manage things pretty well in some sort of way and control things in your four walls pretty well. You can't do that today. Anything from, as we've seen, pandemics to climate change to supply chain disruptions to everything outside now affects every business, even the smallest of business today. So you need to have that level of adaptability and that level of innovation, that constant innovation, and creating simple rules to, as we per the topic today, posture yourselves in a way to match that complexity of the outside. Okay,
no, definitely. I think one of my favorite authors, Michael Gerber, talks a lot of great things about small business and the E-Myth. And a couple of things that he says that are key is, one, you got to work on your business, but not in it. And really a big key to that is setting up systems, processes, procedures. And he says that you can't manage people, but you can manage systems.
Exactly. And that's systems leadership. Exactly right. That's spot on. Absolutely. And then that's one of the things we really do work on, systems leadership. And if things fail, it's not because of really of people, it's because of systems failure. Right. So, and if failure occurs, look at the system first and see how did that create the failure? Or how did that promote it? Yes, a person may have made a decision, but it's because the system failed that person in many respects. So a lot of businesses often try to look at targeting people for failure. It's the human's fault or it's the person's fault. Well, no. Often you can go far back to look at the system itself and how did it create that sort of level of behavior. And you can even go back to the onboarding. Why didn't your onboarding look at this person as well? So, but Michael Gerber is absolutely correct. You create the systems so you can work on your business, not in it. Especially for small business, as a business the small business leader, you're often not just the manager and leader, but you're the business development person, you're the salesperson, you're the often sometimes the supply chain person, and so you're wearing a lot of hats. You're often at certain times trying to put out many fires, but if that's also the case, well, that's because your systems aren't optimal. So, and speaking to small business owners can be tough in that way, because it's about often, as I mentioned before, relinquishing that, releasing it, and that can be tough for small business because they've come from that small business, growing it, and releasing that part to someone else can be tough. It's emotional, but it's powerful when they release it and they can see it happening by someone else owning it and potentially even making it better. So, and that's then the scaling starts to happen. So, yeah, we're very much advocates of systems leadership in our business.
Okay, so you've got the systems. When you're dealing with these systems, I find that many small business owners don't really have systems.
No,
and that could be hard to implement. How do you help people start to go down the road to developing the systems that they need?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, if I can maybe provide a bit of a case study. When I walked into a small business back in 2014, it literally had no systems. It was literally, things were everywhere on their Microsoft, system at the time. There's no structure. There was nothing. There was just documents going everywhere, and everything was almost bespoke. Creating a quote was just an email or things like that. It's absolutely nothing. So the best thing that I found, and subsequently from my own consulting, which I've learned from, is you just create a simple rules document, like a business rules. And when you start to communicate that with the team, you start to give the team an understanding of what their roles are. It's also helpful in terms of making sure you're filling any gaps and also addressing any duplications. But it becomes absolutely clearer about what the system is looking like from the start. So a simple rules document, expectations, what's allowed, what isn't, and that's a very organic discussion as well. Yes, you're creating it, but it's a conversation with the team as well. So obviously you're coming from nothing, and a lot of people come with their own assumptions with their role. So you want to get that absolutely clear. And then once you've got that up and running, it becomes really quite clear for people what they're walking into every day. Because what I walked into in my own experience was a business that was very, I wouldn't say it's volatile, but it was just, there's a lot of, you could say, small conflict and confusion about people's roles and who was responsible for what, and from supply chain decisions to sales to getting quotes out to invoicing and that sort of thing. So there was just no performance aspects to it either as well. There's no accountability. But once you get that up and you discuss that and engender that with the team, and becomes known, and everyone is aware of both their and the other team's responsibilities, a lot of that confusion and conflict just magically starts to disappear. It doesn't say that it won't happen, but at least you've got a document to fall back on, a rules document, a simple rules document that people can always revert back to. So, and that is not always concrete. It can always change, but at least you've got something in place. So that was our first step, is create a simple rules document, and then systems grow from there. And by the time I left the business, we were, triple ISO certified in quality management environment. But that took a bit of time. But for going from nothing within, year zero at the start to year three, into year three, we were ISO certified. So if anything else, creating a rules document would be a great start. It gets clarity in your business.
Okay, so creating the rules, so sort of just thinking broadly about how to, break down the different segments of the business. So definitely, working with people, I'm sure you probably see it too. Many business owners have ADD. So, they tend to be like all over the place.
Yes, and, absolutely.
However, that doesn't really bode well for developing systems and processes, because your systems and your organization needs to run smoothly, rather than jumping around a lot. So many times people need help. They may not have the personality type to really be able to focus on it the way they need to. So I'm sure you help people through that. What are some of the keys to working with someone who is doing has a great business, but isn't able to implement the systems and processes themselves?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think what it does, you really got to try and spell out to them about the impacts of what they're doing. Their lack of letting go will prevent them from realizing the scale of what their business is. So or what the potential of their business, I should say. So it is about highlighting to them, look, you've gotten to this point, things have changed, you now need to change with it. And it is a bit of mentoring, there's a bit of working, and we often do offer mentoring guidance as part of our services. Because you will come up with small business owners will come with a question of, I'm dealing with this. And then then it's about creating scenarios and, the what coulds that could happen, the what ifs, and working through that, and posturing as per this topic for the next 6 to 12 months, 3 years, 5 years. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? Do you still want to be putting out fires within 3 or 5 years? Do you still want to be not able to work on the business and do business development and go and speak at conferences, or do you still want to be working back here and dealing with conflict and confusion? Well, of course I don't. So creating the systems that allow them to let go, that realizes the business benefits and how it relates to their own well-being, but as well as others, is something we try to step through with small business owners. Yep, it's tough, and they get it. I realize that they're often the founders of the business. They think they will know it's good for it, and they are good for it. But what's a better idea, is they start to relinquish that decision making, and you do that through some simple rules and systems.
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely be difficult to relinquish as a business owner. I mean, most business owners have had bad experiences, with employees, with different things. So, they tend to, be kind of concerned about relinquishing things. So,
yes,
definitely that's understandable. But, at the end of the day, like you said, if they want to move forward, they're going to have to figure that out.
Yes.
But having,
and they can be, and look, and sometimes it just add another context. Sometimes they can't afford another person, or they can't, and I get it. So there's a profit and obviously revenue and profit discussion, and well, how can you do that? But so it is chicken eggs discussions. It is iterative. It's contextual, and I get it. But it is about, you've got to take on some risk, and you've got to have a bit of courage and do that, and through better systems you can get some better people, and there are creative ways you can do it. You don't have to employ maybe someone full-time, maybe get a mentor, or get someone who can come in maybe as a consultant here or there, or part-time. So there are ways of doing anything that's based on the context they're in.
Mm-hmm. And and another way is you can get your team to help you do that. Have people write down exactly what they do, and then
exactly right, yeah,
and say, okay, this is what you should do, or maybe you should do this a little differently. Don't do that. Why aren't we doing this? And that, once you have, an expectation and a template, and people know what to do, then you can trust them more, because you have a system, and you can help manage the system, as opposed to try and manage a person to get them to do what you want.
Yeah, exactly right. Because you holding on to that almost sort of says that you don't trust people.
Right.
But if you actually have a conversation and say, look, I'm actually going to relinquish this, I'm going to trust you, you actually can enable things in people that you may have not even realized or noticed. And I certainly, was that part of my journey when I was a small business manager, and some of the best ideas and leadership came from the shop floor. some of the best innovations. If we weren't open-minded and maybe even humble my own leadership, that never would have been realised. You don't know everything. You don't have the best ideas, or don't all have the best ideas. The power of people to relinquish that and come up with ideas and allow that to happen. It's a powerful thing. And if you can't trust the people, if they're not the right people, well, that's when you maybe got to look at mentoring them, or maybe sometimes it's a harder conversation as well. Are they the right people going forward as well? So, but I think people realize if you actually give trust, you get leadership. And that's certainly what I've seen in both my own situation, but also in my own consulting practice.
Okay. And actually you missed one big thing. Many times it's actually their leadership skills that are causing the problems that they have. The way they're leading the organization. So it's not, a lot of times they think it's their people, but it's really them. And that's why you need someone to come in, because I don't mind, I talk to people, I'm like, you're doing this, but what that's causing is this, and you don't really want this. So what are we going to do? So having someone who can have those conversations with you, and it's usually not an employee.
Yes, 100%. And sometimes you got to look at the leader and poke him in the eye, or her in the eye, and say, look, you've got to be different yourself. If this business is going to go forward, you need to be different. And because this is what is happening. So it's that same old, as I mentioned at the start, the same sort of business model and business, I guess, myth or practice of the previous century whitewash in this current century. So we often say that the 20th century business models won't work in the 21st. So you've got to be a different leader and with different structures, different systems, and most get it, but it can be a tough conversation, that's for sure. And because what got them there was successful, but it's not necessarily going to get them there into the future.
Correct. My recent book called The Masterpreneur Playbook sort of outlines how you go from startup to scaling. And, one thing is there's a path that your business, a 5-step path your business has to go on, but also there's a 5-step evolution that you have to go on as a business owner. And if you don't make the evolution to the next level, your business isn't going to get to the next level. So it's a way to sort of outline and show, okay, you have to go from being a manager to being an executive.
Yes.
This is what an executive does versus a manager. And you have to have a manager to be the manager, or you can't be the executive. So, really helping to walk through the steps, understand what you got to do, because, I'm a big piece of that is helping them evolve. I think that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I do, and I'm sure you do a lot of, is KPIs, or key performance indicators, because to deal with complexity, you have to have current, accurate information, and that's what that's all about. Can you talk a little bit about KPIs and sort of what types of KPIs you may use, and how they can work for an organization?
No, it's a great question. So again, not probably using the same old metric as previously. We don't often, it depends on context, but we often not use sales or dumb data as a way to manage or accountability or health of a business. We some of the KPIs we actually try to look at and bring into business is things like how many ideas did you generate, how many times did you fail and try things, health surveys from employees, are they being respected and are they being included, things like that. So performance will always be of a bit of a small business, particularly related to profit and revenue. There's no doubt about that. But we often take this different view ourselves in our practice about, well, okay, well, what is posturing you as per the topic, for future success? And so we've got to make sure our KPIs are not just for now, but for the future as well. So yeah, there'll always be accountability on performance in the now, but what about later? So idea generation, new systems, how are you maturing in certain areas? You were doing this last year, but have you gotten better this year? So again, with our systems leadership, we often take a more perspective on systems KPIs as well. So it's an even balance, not just on KPIs for the individual, but the system itself. How healthy is it? How mature is it in certain areas? So, and we try to look at a broad perspective of that as well. So, one of our main lens for our business is to look at things like sustainability, and what are you doing to create leave a legacy that's outside your four walls. So it shouldn't just be about your numbers and your sales and things like that, but how are you networking and offering your insights to not-for-profits and things like that. So and again, things like what have you gotten better in terms of waste, things like the circular economy. That one of our specializations is circular economy, reducing your waste and recycling, those sort of things. So we take a very much a system KPI perspective. We find that if you start to focus on the system, the rest sort of looks after itself in many respects. So I think what that also does, Andrew, if you take that perspective, you don't really focus on the individual being held to account of performance, that people get actually more buy-in into your company and what it's trying to do, its purpose. So from purpose and policy down to system-based KPIs, what we find is that relates to better meaning for people. They get more buy-in. That then relates to better retention. So the benefits of taking a more system perspective start to become a bit of a force multiplier, as we say, on other things, and upskilling, innovation, those sort of things. So we don't really like putting KPIs on people. I think that can almost be rather disserving. I think we rather look on health, system health, and what that really looks like. So that's a bit of slight difference that we do.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense. Usually, try to focus, this KPIs on either company-wide, department-wide, or division-wide, so that there's a team approach to achieving those goals.
Yes.
And if you can push them down through the organization, then that allows people to self-manage, allows people to know how they're doing. It's amazing how many organizations, people don't even know if they're doing a good job because nobody ever tells them and they get no feedback.
That's right, yeah.
If you have goals and you measure them and let people know, then they can see, how do I contribute to the success of the organization? Most people want to do a good job.
Exactly right.
Want their company be successful, but usually they're not 100% sure what the best way to do that is.
No,
because it could be confusing, and as a result, they're not as productive as they could have been. Exactly
right, and then it becomes almost a counterproductive exercise in deviant behaviour and in selfishness. And I'm only here for a paycheck. Yeah. So, but if you give people a broader, and we often don't work in purpose, but certainly you've got to give people some level of meaning of why I'm going to work. What am I achieving today?
Yeah.
So if we can if it's about a better planet or a better community, or even just a better me compared to yesterday, how is that going to be achieved today? So when they walk through that door, you're right. People don't want to walk through a door and say, I'm going to be bad today. I'm going to be ordinary. You want to be extraordinary. You want to be better than yesterday. So how does a business facilitate that? And that's, again, through systems and teamwork and conversations. And you talk about KPIs. We're not a big advocate on the annual review. Right. We think the annual review is well, in today's complex world, which emergence and uncertainty, that's too late. If you're having conversations with your team 12 months, every 12, well, that's not going to work. It should be always a conversation, ongoing conversation. So we think that if you put it at the broader KPIs of your business and health and what you want to achieve as an organic unit that you're part of, you get better outcomes and healthier people, and people get, and then it relates to well-being, and again, what I mentioned before about retention, and they feel part of something.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that comes out of the military too, because the teamwork, you rally your team and you have a clear goal. This is we're going to take this hill. This is how we're going to do it. This is your job. This is your job. This is your job. And everybody's like, let's go do it. And so I think that's key. One of the things that I do use with businesses to help measure people. Not sure how familiar with you are, but OKRs, which are more objectives and key results. So, it gives people clarity around sort of what they should focus on and what the results are that will demonstrate that they did a good job. So
and that goes. I think I'd probably key results or achievements or something like that. So idea generation. What ideas did you bring? And I've created a system that's allowed you the openness and again the cliche term psychological safety to bring ideas to the business. About what have you brought? What have you shared? And there's no dumb idea. There's no. We want to be potentially as contrarian as possible. Anything could happen, right? So, and we'll look at anything. So. Again, ideas, innovations. That I think it was Albert Camus who said the history of humanity is a history of ideas. And so, if you're not generating ideas, I think information ideas are the nutrients for an organization. If you don't have that, it becomes necrotic, like an organic organism. So, ideas and information. If that's not occurring, well, you quickly become necrotic, and your business will die. So. That's one of the things that we focus on in terms of any performance or key achievements that we want to happen on a regular basis is idea generation.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. You especially your leadership team, you have to develop a culture in which people feel empowered to share things that could be helpful without fear of negative consequences.
Exactly right. Yeah. And in the world of complexity, Andrew, there's no right or wrong. There's only really good or bad. So, and that's okay. And so if you give people to say that also that language, there's no right or wrong with this. We'll look at anything. So, and again, it's that failure thing. The old Japanese proverb: fail 7 times, get up 8. We'll fail every now and then, but we'll keep on getting up. That's okay as well, but at least we're trying. At least we'll learn every time we do something.
Right, and they say you should fail fast, so that and that's where the systems and measuring is, because that allows you to know if what you're doing is working, or you need to make some adjustments sooner rather than later.
Exactly right. Yeah. Adjustments. We look at things like nudge theory, and nudge theory's got a good and bad connotation, but that's probably because it's been overused and or misdeployed. But nudging areas is how you come from failure. And nudging areas and certain improvements, but you're trialing things, you're trying scenarios. It's about recognizing, old low-hanging fruit again. Where can we improve? Make subtle improvements here or there, because they're the ones that'll get that quick wins or quick failures.
Right. So, one of the things that I think you probably run into, like I do, is a lot of times people don't really understand what you do. They'll nod their head, but some of it seems like it's magic, or you're just making stuff up or whatever. But one way I've come to describe it, which is terrible for marketing, is make your business boring. You're not going to have to be up at midnight worrying whether something's done or something's working.
Yeah.
You're going to have more time, more headspace with less stress, so you can focus on running your business better. And there's got to be a better way to say that. But
I think it's a great way, actually. I think it's a really great way. Yeah, it's a bit like what I sort of said before. You want to work on the business, right? So you want to, the boring stuff is going to networking events or business development, and you don't want to be putting out fires and the stress that you mentioned. But yeah, you're right. It's a bit of a catch-22. You almost, and this is where I think some small business owners get maybe a little bit concerned and fearful, is that they think by doing that, they become almost obsolete. In that sort of respect, and maybe having less meaning, but it's about deploying that purpose and that meaning in something else, and maybe hooking themselves onto the power of doing that. That's their new meaning. So, but I like what you say in terms of knowing what we do. I'm making your life boring. I've used that word as well. I'm going to make you less stressful, and it's more quiet. But ultimately, what I also try and say is I'm going to try and give you new meaning and a new purpose for getting up in the morning. So, and I think they start to realize, okay, I'm not making myself obsolete. I'm not putting myself out of work by putting my leadership distributed through my team. There's other ways I'm helping the business here being valued. My value is still there.
And actually, not only that, those other ways that things you're doing are more valuable than what you're doing now, and
100%.
more valuable for the organization. So the organization loses out.
Yes.
Because you're not doing the best things that you can do for the organization, and allowing other people to do some things that you do that you don't necessarily have to do.
I totally agree. And I think if you want to get down to a more if they're getting towards maybe retirement, I think they want to sell the business.
Right.
Well, I think if they want to put that, if they're still putting out fires when they're trying to sell the business, that's not healthy. So if they're relinquishing the decision making, and when the new owner comes in and they don't have to do much at all, and they can see it, they can sense it. So from a maybe a selfish or financial perspective, they want to sell the business in 5 or 10 years. Well, that's the sort of maneuvers you need to make. Relinquishing your leadership, so not putting out fires, so you get your benefit of your hard work later, if you want to sell the business. And that's a conversation. That's contextual.
Okay. And actually, that's a great point, because all the things we're talking about today, you can't implement tomorrow and have them work. We're talking about things that take months, quarters, and years to do successfully. But once you do them, you get the benefit of it going forward through the whole time within your organization. One great example was, I work with a manufacturing company, and we were able to develop systems, processes, leadership structures such that they doubled their profitability on the same. So that means every year they're getting done. It took a year to do that, an investment, but once you do that, every year you keep that benefit. And also it made it easier on the owner, because everybody knew what they were supposed to do and did it.
Totally agree. It's that courage to be uncomfortable initially. And it's the two traits we often say about leadership today and the future is courage and humility. And that's where the courage comes in, to be a little bit uncomfortable. And comfortable comes in the failure part and all the bits and pieces. But what you just said there, and the uncomfortable is go through a step of transition almost for themselves and the business. Because if they're still putting out fires in 5-10 years time, that's not healthy for anyone. But going through that uncomfortable 6 or 12 months pays dividends thereafter.
one thing, someone told me this, but I always loved this quote, and most people do, is, when you're in those situations, you really got to do the hard work up first before you see the results.
Yeah.
And, they say that, if you look at, there's only one place where success comes before work. Any idea where that is?
No.
In the dictionary.
Oh, nice. I like
use that. I bought it.
I'm going to plagiarize that one, Andrew. Well, I'm going to write that right now. Yeah. So, no, I like that. That's good.
So definitely, those are some key things. There's so many things that we can talk about, in this topic that we can't fully do it justice. But, I think that one thing that's important is, you've got indicators. It's about information, so you can make decisions based on information. So, one, you're gathering the information, and two, you have the knowledge and time to analyze it to, come up with a complex response based on the environment. But, we talk about KPIs, they're usually lagging indicators. What are some, leading indicators that you might use to help people manage and deal with complexity even more?
Yeah, I think if they're leading indicators would be, a good indicator would be if they're constantly having to create bespoke responses. Is against that putting out fires part again. So if people on your, say, for example, okay, so if people on your shop floor are conflicting about a certain product or how it should be made, if you're getting questions up to you or things like that, it's particularly more of a manufacturing sense. You have to ask yourself why, and not just let that go. So if things like that are reaching you, that looks like a systems failure to me. It's a leading indicator that people that you're not allowing them to make decisions. So, and you haven't created the system that allows them to look at that in such a way that they can make a decision and also have the authority to actually, and creativity to do it. So in some sort of way, maybe because they're fearful, they fear repercussions. So if you're trying to work on the business and you're traveling and you're getting phone calls in the middle of the night and this has happened or this has happened and this argument's happened, well, that's a leading indicator that the system's wrong. It's not healthy. It's not optimal. And that's wasting everyone's time. So other leading indicators are obviously people leaving. Why? Why are people leaving your business? Retention's poor. Why are you not stocking properly? Why, if you're not managing your stock and inventory in such a way that you're exposed and you're having to wait 3, 6, 12 weeks for a lead time on a certain product, well, that's a failure. Why didn't we have the intelligence? You mentioned before about data and information. We always talk about data, information, knowledge, wisdom. So what's a system that's that's getting data and then that flow to wisdom that creates the systems? What's the breakdown of that failure if you haven't got the right stock in place and you get an order for something that you have to make yesterday, but you haven't got the stock for in terms of materials? So there are little things here and there that tell you in some sort of way that things aren't healthy and things aren't optimal, and it's not allowing you to release. And that becomes a conversation. So for me, the little fires are the indicators, little leading indicators, and if those sort of things are reaching you, well, they're that's the improvement you need to work on. So, and that can be, and that's very contextual to any business. Manufacturing, things like stock. Are you doing risk management properly? have you actually sat down with your team and done risk management properly and turned, and then issues, are you managing issues? Is that data information then flowing into your systems development? It's, often I find small businesses don't do risk management well. And today's in complex environment demands that risk management be done differently. You've got to look at it from a systemic perspective. And again, I mentioned before that small businesses still think that the risk only really within their four walls, but small businesses now need to start acting and thinking globally. So the smallest businesses are more than likely, particularly if you're a product-based business, probably getting supplies and materials from China or Pakistan or Eastern Europe. So what impacts on them in terms of supply chain are going to be realised on their business, and they're doing that risk management properly. And have they set up redundancies in their supply chain so that when that fails, that one, this other option can pick up the slack. So those all those little things there, those system failures are for me the leading indicators.
Okay. No, great. Definitely. Those are, it's important, the key to success is making good decisions, and the key to making good decisions is having good, accurate, timely information. And that's really what systems management, managing by the numbers is all about. So, we covered a lot of great stuff. What I like to do at the end is really, ask each guest to really boil down what are the three most important things someone should take away from what we talked about. Because a lot of times we only retain 30% of what we hear. And and generally it's hard to remember more than three things. So if we can leave them with three things to get started with tomorrow, I think that people find that very helpful. So I want you to take a minute to think about it. I'm going to play a quick commercial about my upcoming Power Breakfast. We've been doing the Power Breakfast for over 10 years, and we've really been able to impact a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners in terms of financing, in terms of opportunities to do business. And our next one's going to be coming up October 27th. For those of you who don't know what the Power Breakfast is all about, here's a quick 1-minute video, and then I'll be back with Shaun with three key takeaways that we all can get started with tomorrow. If you are looking to increase revenues, improve profitability, and or obtain financing for your business, you need to check out the Power Breakfast and Small Business Pro conferences.
My name is Andrew Frazier. One of the things we're here to do is supercharge your day.
Today's Power Breakfast has really been a phenomenal experience. I think it's exactly what business owners need, some true guidance of people who are genuine and really are leading them in the true direction of business growth and expansion.
The Power Breakfast is so important for the entrepreneurial community because it gives the various business people who come together an opportunity to interact and also do some business.
These events, hosted by Andrew Frazier, President and COO of Small Business Like a Pro, will supercharge your day.
Okay. All right. Welcome back. Here with Shaun, talking small business, and he's going to leave us with three key things that we can put to work tomorrow, or if you're a night owl, even tonight. So take it away, Shaun.
I think the three things I would leave listeners with is probably based on the two traits I've mentioned before about leadership, the courage and humility aspects. Have the courage or the notion of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that means looking at yourself as a leader. And if some of the things that we've talked about today resonate with you in terms of putting out fires and not letting go and being fearful of that, get to know yourself a bit more and that can be often uncomfortable, and realizing both your strengths and weaknesses. So looking at yourself initially. The second part, probably looking more at your business in terms of your people, and having the open-mindedness to have conversations regularly with them, and just really being, in terms of the humility aspects, being humble and just listening. We often talk about truth telling in business, but I think for a leader, truth listening is a core skill that I think that future leaders will need. Again, it's that notion of not knowing everything, that future leaders will not know everything, and even being humble enough to admit that they don't know, what they don't know is more than what they do know. And the third thing I'll probably leave with is turn that courage and humility is, don't be afraid for your business to be fun. Make it playful. This is always this old notion of that businesses are there for one thing only, and that's profit and earning money. And that's true. That's very true. It always keeps companies afloat, and it pays the bills and pays salaries. But I always look at how can you make things fun and lighthearted. So always introduce that notion of where can you do things a little bit differently that engenders a bit of creativity, imagination, even games. So there's probably some three things. They're the sort of three things I think if you do things today, start looking at those sort of things today and start embedding over the next few weeks and months, you'll start to notice differences. And that then starts to realize into better financial performance and all those sort of other related aspects of retention, happiness, people having purpose. You'll start seeing absenteeism go down. You'll start generating better ideas. And I think out of those three things, ideas are probably the core thing. If you can start generating better ideas in your business, either from yourself, from your team, and from the outside world as well, having that sort of outside broader intelligence, I think you'll be onto a good thing.
Okay, excellent. So, that's a great combination. So, courage, but humility, willingness to try new things, and not be afraid to fail. Communication, especially listening, is critical. And then having fun. All those things can lead to better ideas. So that's what drives your business forward more successfully. So
absolutely.
This has been great, Shaun. Thanks again for joining me this evening. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to share some of your expertise.
I really enjoyed it, Andrew. Thanks for the opportunity. And really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the dialogue, and wish all your listeners all the best in this complex world that we live in today. So
great. Thank you. Hang on for a minute. Let me just close things out, and I'll be back. All right. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Another great show. Hopefully got a lot out of hearing from Shaun. It is a complex business world. So we need to understand how to survive, not only survive, but thrive. And, a lot of things Shaun was talking about will prepare you and your business to be able to thrive, to be able to navigate this complex world. So hopefully take away some valuable things. Each week, as you know, we have great guests, and next week, we have a new topic that I think is going to be really good. We have Io Sanderson Wilson, and she's going to be talking about accelerating economic empowerment. She's the CEO of Empower the Village. And, economic empowerment is key. It's critical in many ways. So, how do you achieve economic empowerment? What is it? Her organization really focuses on helping other organizations, other individuals, other groups to be able to bring things together to really increase economic empowerment. And a big component of that is entrepreneurship, because that's really, one of the key areas of opportunity for people to empower themselves as well as others. So looking forward to having Io as our guest next week. And, before I close out, mention that, the Small Business Pro Network, I encourage you to join this week because as of Saturday, it's going to no longer be free. So take advantage of our launch special as well. We do have the Power Breakfast coming up on October 27th, so put that on your dates as well. So, at the end of the day, as a business owner, the more that you know, the faster and more successfully your business is going to grow. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.